Welcome to the Student Athlete Performance Podcast. I'm your host, Nick Lemke, and today we are focusing on how athletes can develop the mindset and habits needed for success. Our guest is Hunter Lessard, co-founder of Maverix Baseball Academy in Arizona, and we'll be diving into the mental game, dealing with failure and success, and how to avoid overdoing showcases. Hunter, thanks for joining us today.
You bet. Thanks for having me, Nick.
Of course. Let's talk about Maverix Baseball Academy. Can you tell us a little bit more about how you guys develop athletes both on and off the field?
Yeah, so Maverix Baseball Academy was founded by me and my best friend, Michael Herrera. We've been playing against each other locally in Phoenix since we were 8 and on the same team since we were 12 or 13. And we went to high school together. We played in the middle infield. He went to a junior college out here. I went to a different one. So then we started playing against each other. And then he went to a Division I in Texas. I went to a Division I in Texas. And unfortunately, we didn't get to play each other, which would have been awesome. Yeah. But we founded the Maverix Baseball Academy last summer, August of 2023, under the idea of Mavericks being a horse, independent, like you can't control it, right? You can't, they think for themselves. They're just a beast. And that's the idea of Mavericks, is helping these athletes become their own best coach and helping them learn themselves, so they don't need, this like idea that, hey, I need somebody else, right? I can do this. I can set my mind to something and achieve it. Is there obviously coaches to help you along the path that, hey, I don't know much about diet and nutrition, or I don't know much about showcases. Like, yeah, there's people there to help you, or recruiting, or whatever it is. But yeah, man, we just decided to really go all in and help athletes figure out that, hey, you have the X factor. Once you totally buy into the idea that you can do something that you put your mind to, like, there's nothing stopping you. So yeah.
I love that.
And so we have a bunch of different ways that we work with guys. We host a Mavericks Sandlot. That is basically a free-for-all, 21 kids every other week. And it's competitions, fun, and then live at bats. So the kids love that. We scrimmage, and it's about 3 hours long. And that's basically our initial way to work with us. And then we have a private hitting academy where we work with hitters remotely and in person. And then we have our X Factor community, where it's just mental game, building confidence, better self-talk, mental visualization, all that stuff.
Awesome. Yeah, you have a lot of good content on the mindset stuff. That's how I actually came across to you, and I was like, oh man, you got some good stuff. And so let's start with the of course. Let's start with the mindset and the environment piece. And so, you talk about the importance of environment for athletes. How does that play a role in their development and success?
Absolutely, Nick. Great question. I think you hear a lot of successful people talk about, hey, you become like the 5 people you hang out with, right? If 5 people are smoking, you're going to be the 6th smoker. If 5 people are putting in work at the gym, you're going to be the 6th, right? And that community weighs heavily on us, right? I think science shows us that it's 50% community and 50% epigenetics. The way that we think, the way that we feel, all that stuff comes into play. And then, 50% is your community. And the way I like to think of it is, why do we continue to see so many big leaguers kids end up playing in the big leagues? Yeah. Right? You see Jackson Holiday, the hype is real. The kid's a beast.
And the younger brothers are coming up too.
The younger brothers are coming up, and you've got Bo Bichette, and his dad played in the big leagues, and Vladdy Jr., and they're all over. Mm-hmm. And you see how much that community or that environment impacts them in a positive way. And unfortunately, on the other side, we do see 5th, 6th, 7th generational welfare recipients or section, that they continue to live that same experience, and they don't know any better, right? The community they're in has them believing, hey, this is how it is. And so, yeah, I think that environment is huge, right? Finding, one, not only a positive environment, but 2, an environment that's going to push you, right? Challenge you and make you pull more out of yourself. What can you find out of yourself if you're hanging around, 5 big leaguers and you're in the weight room with them? Like, you're going to get pushed a lot differently than 5 kids that are playing junior high baseball that don't want to be there, So environment's huge.
Yeah, no, that's so true. I love the side by side you put there. You have like the Section 5 housing, things like that, and then you have the sons and daughters of elite, of pro athletes, and how they follow in their footsteps. So
sure.
no, it's just so big. Like, and actually I had somebody else on the podcast who was talking about the same thing, the 5 people you surround yourself with. And yeah, it's one of those things where, and this is why I talk to athletes, like, if you're eating the way that the rest of your high school is eating, you're behind. Like, if you want to be an elite athlete, you cannot eat like everybody else, because everybody else is following the pack. Same with really anything. Like, the 1%ers don't follow the other 99%. They pave their own path, or they follow those who are in the 1%.
Agreed. I'm sure you probably have researched a little bit of Tom Brady's diet.
Yeah.
Dude, he's what turned me on to eating healthfully, and what food I put into my body is what I'm going to get out in performance. And I fully believe that helped me go from, a guy in high school that's getting D1 looks to a guy in junior college that got several D1 offers. Yeah. And I think that was the difference. Was a lot of it was mental game. A lot of it was, just building confidence at a higher level with a wood bat. But I truly think, like, I wouldn't have been able to put as much work in because my body was just recovering so fast, man. Like, the food I was eating, I was stretching every day. I was, doing everything I could. And it truly, you can't get those results if you're doing the same thing everyone else is doing.
Yeah. Nutrition becomes one of those X factors the higher you go in sports, for sure.
Agreed.
So let's talk about failure and success, because it's something else that I've seen you post about. So how should athletes deal with failure?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think the biggest thing is you got to experience it at some point to some degree. The biggest thing that I see now is a lot of parents trying to protect their kids, and they're trying to, weasel their way into, hey, my kid deserves more playing time and this and that. And honestly, what they're doing is they're hurting their kid, because that failure is giving them real feedback. And hey, if they're not meant to play that sport, at some point they're going to come out of the game anyways. But if they experience that failure and they can't, overcome that, they've never experienced it before and they've been protected, now it becomes a whole different situation. It's late in the game and they've been protected in club ball, and now high school they get cut, and now it's the world ending, right? When reality, the failure's the feedback, right? Okay, I'm not where I want to be yet. I got to make more progress. I got to make some adjustments, right? And that's truthfully, I mean, you hear it all over the place. Some of the best athletes, some of the best entrepreneurs, really anybody that's had success will tell you that they failed more times than they succeeded. And that's why they're succeeding. You hear Kobe Bryant and Michael Jordan, famous, talking about, I was just unafraid to miss that shot, take that last minute shot and miss, because the next one I was going to make. And Babe Ruth, I kept swinging until I was just one pitch closer to my next home run. It's like, I think it's a crucial part of the learning process.
I love that. Yeah. And when we talk baseball specifically, like, this is, again, another one of my guests mentioned this, is baseball is a failure sport. Like, you have to fail more often than you succeed, because you look at a batting average and it's 1/3 of the time is like, Hall of Famer status, like batting 300, 330 consistently, that's Hall of Fame status. But batting like 250, it can actually be pretty decent depending on what your other stats look like too. But like, it's ultimately you're failing, 3 to 4 or 2 to 3 out of 3 to 4 times essentially.
Yeah, I mean, it's not an easy game, and the toughness that it takes to go through a slump, man. And I've been 0 for 20 in college. Like, it's not fun, but it's the ups are so big, and that's why staying right here is so important. Not getting too high, not getting too low, and how do we deal with that failure? A lot of the times, you know, we teach our guys, they got to redefine success. Like, what does success mean to you? If success is, you know, results, and success is, you know, all these external things, well, how are we going to get those? Well, we got to cause that effect. And so let's work at the cause. And, you know, I think defining success is things that we can control. For so long, my confidence was tied to everything I couldn't control. My results, what my coach thought of me, where I was in the lineup. Like, dude, my confidence would go like this from being put 9 in the lineup to the next day I'm 1. And I'm like, what am I doing wrong?
Yeah.
And once I started tying that confidence to the work I was putting in and the behind the scenes stuff, I'm like, oh, this makes sense. Confidence can really grow fast, you know?
Yeah. No, I love that. Not identifying your success based on what's not in your control. Like that's, really focusing on what's in your control, and that's how you measure success. Cause that's, otherwise you're setting yourself up for failure, ultimately.
For sure.
So I love
Because
that.
if you define it correctly, right? What is success to you? I mean, is success winning and losing? Maybe. You know, Albert Einstein said the things we can count sometimes don't count, and the things we can't count count. And it's like, I don't know if you, like me, have experienced where you give your best, you play the best, whatever sport you're playing, and you lose.
Mm-hmm.
What more could you do? You couldn't, you know, and that's where defining success is like, okay, being the best I can possibly be. And that's where John Wooden, you know, the legendary UCLA basketball coach, he was so adamant on his players just focusing on being the best that they could be and making progress where they needed to make progress. And you saw, a dynasty.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think that that's super important.
No, that's good. That's good. Now, what about the flip side though? Because how we deal with success can be just as dangerous as how we deal with failure. So, how do we deal with it to prevent us from being our own worst enemy?
Absolutely. I think sticking to the things that we can control, right? Allowing the circumstance, allowing the opportunity to get bigger, allowing all of that to impact what you were doing that got you there. I think that's where a lot of people go wrong. And you know, I don't know for sure Javier Baez's situation or circumstance. Like I don't at all. But I know he signed a huge contract, and since that contract was signed, he hasn't putting up nearly the stats that he was putting up with the Cubbies, and he was fun to watch. And you know, you see, I had Paul Konerko on our X Factor community where we have athletes come on and learn about the mental game and building confidence. And he was talking, he said, you know, it's funny that it's not funny, but he said it's more common than you think of guys getting there and losing it. He's like, they have success and it goes away. He's like, that's the hardest part, is not getting there, but keeping it. And so I think just focusing on what got you there and sticking to the process is how you combat that instant success, you know, that whatever level it is to you, it's big for you, and stick to what got you there.
Yeah. I feel like even Tom Brady talks about, it wasn't about winning Super Bowls for him. There's a reason why he won so many, and it was because it wasn't about winning them. Like, it's, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Crazy little sidetrack. I was at Super Bowl 51 in a suite when they came back and beat the Falcons, dude, and it was the most legendary. I told my dad, I'm like, I can't go to another sporting event because what could be better than that? That's my favorite team, my favorite player, down 28-3, and unreal.
Yeah.
Unreal.
It's his brain is just wired so differently than the average person, but it's like, those are things we can control though. How we wire our brains, those are things we can develop. So like athletes listening, like, you may not be Tom Brady, but you can develop your minds to be on that level. Like,
For sure.
that's something that's in your control, is your mind. And so, this is where, again, leveraging the resources you have, whether it be coaches like Hunter or we've got sports psychologists out there. We've got a lot of great resources to really help you master that. There's just so much, and we're learning so much in that field too. It's just like nutrition. There's constant growing in how much our mind has in store for us.
Absolutely. And I mean, going back to the environment, that environment programs, if you will, right? It programs you to think a certain way and act a certain way and be a certain way. And when you can truly re-change the programming or the way that you're thinking, I mean, dude, it's astronomical, the results that you can get. I mean, great point with Tom Brady. Not the best talent, not the best skill, not the best, physical body, but dude, when the game was on the line and the moment was big, he somehow managed to stay composed and execute. Yeah. And you hear him talking about working with his mental coaches and the work that they do, and really like it. Yeah, you hit it head on the nail, dude. It's so important to help you level up. I mean, Phil Mickelson talks about not even going out onto the field until he can see the swing that he wants with his clubs exactly how he wants, and then he'll go golf. And I mean that's just two examples, but you've got example after example, and we're just not taught to think that way.
Yeah. No, we definitely aren't. I mean, yeah, we're so fixated on this success or failure based on, again, like numbers and stats and awards and offers and all these things. And then we're like, okay, call it good. It's like when I had the MLB scout on a little bit ago, he's like, okay, cool. You made it to you got drafted. Cool. That's just the start. Like, cool, you got it to the MLB. Yeah, that's just your start. You still got to keep going. Like there's so much more, and that's where again that mind goes into it for sure. I love that.
Well, it doesn't help that the research from positive psychology shows us that 70% of what we're influenced with or programmed with is negative or limited.
Yeah.
And so how do we go navigate about playing a game where, like you said, there's a lot of failure, a lot of outs made, and how do we believe in ourselves when we're down there in the pit, when we've gotten crushed and we're 0 for our last 10, or we got cut, or whatever the case may be. It's just finding that path, getting back on the path,
Yeah, and changing your thought process, because you've already, even though you're in high school, even though whether you're a ninth grader, senior, whatever, you've already been programmed in so many ways through teachers, through family, through whoever. And when 100%. We're talking about that 70% of our thoughts are negative, 90% of our thoughts are the same thoughts that we've already had. So like we're repeating the same thoughts over and over again, which means we're repeating a lot of negative stuff to us over and over again. And it just trains our mind that way. So bringing in these new things, these new ways of thinking, like that's the only way that you can overcome all the negative.
Well, absolutely.
Yeah. Let's get into athlete development a little bit. I know I only have like 1 or 2 questions here, but I know we're definitely going to expand on this one. Are athletes overdoing showcases today?
Absolutely. At every age. I mean, dude, you're telling me that LSU and Texas do not know who they're going after? I mean, let's just face it. There's 34 roster spots starting next year for their team. And every fall they bring in, I don't know, 40-ish, 45-ish. They ain't looking at you. I mean, you have to be a freak of a freak in order to get their attention, and playing year round, thinking that you're going to this tournament, I'm going to get seen. Like, dude, no, you're not. Like, they're not going and looking at 15U in the middle of October. Like, they're focused on their fall and maybe that next recruiting class. Mm-hmm. But you're seeing, I mean, I see kids that are 12 years old, man, playing year round almost every weekend. And I love that they're outside playing. I appreciate that fact. And at least they're not gaming all day long, and, they're socializing, they're outside like that. That's great. But parents have made it about them, and like these tournaments have made it about profit. And it's not about people. I mean, I was reading a tweet, Next Level Baseball on Twitter, man. He's very straight to the point. Like, he puts it out there, and he was talking about how absurd these gate fees are, and charging families that have already paid $500 a game for their team to play. And it's like, yeah, man, that's not cool. I mean, I get it. They got to pay, some of these fees for the fields, but isn't that what the fees for the tournament costs? Now you're charging all these parents that want to go support and love their kids. So I don't know. I think it's become a big just profit over people.
Mm.
And, you're seeing these perfect game things where they're taking the NIL rights away from kids and they have no idea. And you're talking about some big time decisions as these kids, like, what do I do? Do I do this or do I, and it's a tricky situation. So I think it's unfortunate, but at least they're outside playing sports and not, doing bad things. So
Yeah. Yeah. So, I know, for example, with the Little League World Series, there was a post about, I think it was the 13U, and they were talking about how one of the parents of the one of the families had spent like overall like 20 grand that year or something on all the teams, all the showcase, all the things at 13. So how do we shift that focus then more on, like we say, the development piece, at these younger ages? How can we balance the playing and again, playing baseball with actually helping them truly develop?
I think that's, it's going to be a hard, I don't know if there's like a black or white, right? It might be kind of
Yeah.
gray area, but I think the parents have the power to say enough's enough, right? Like as a dad now myself, like when my kid's old enough, if he does play, I'm not going to be forcing him to play year round. And especially like, traveling all over the place to go play on these teams. Like, hey, let's do your local season, man, and let's get you in another sport. Go,
Mm.
go be a kid. I mean, potentially the greatest hitter of this decade, Aaron Judge. I mean, he's on a tear. Dude, he was 3-sport All-American, football, basketball, baseball. And the strength and the endurance and the mental toughness that comes from doing different things and getting challenged, like, I think that's what we need to go back to and making it about playing and not so much about like, oh, my kid's results. He's going to the pros next year. Like, dude, your kid's 13 playing double A.
Yeah.
And like his results at this all-state game, it don't matter. Did he have fun? Did he make friends? Did he have a good time out there? Those are the questions you should ask your kid when you're getting back in the car, not, why did you throw the ball like that? Or why did you take that swing? Like, that's why these kids don't want to communicate with their parents.
Mm.
And it's unfortunate, it's like I've seen more parents drive kids out of sports and out of the game than, keeping them in a healthy relationship in the game.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
so I would say to answer your question, Nick, that is part number one. And part number two is finding a place where, it's not like, I don't know, you got to know your age and know yourself. Like when I hit high school, I went all in on baseball. But prior to that, it was like, dude, I was out in the desert playing forts and playing football, basketball in the street, hockey, airsoft,
Mm.
baseball. Like I did it all. And I played with kids that were a little bit older than me, kids in my street that were 3 years older than me. Play against them. And I got better and I got challenged. And that's where, the love of the game came from. And it wasn't until I got into club ball and started practicing 3 days a week, every week. And I'm going through the motions, feeling like I'm not a Maverick, right? I'm literally a zombie just doing what coach tells me because that's the way. No, dude, go have fun. Go be a kid. Go
Mm.
play different sports. Try different things. And I think that's the closest that we could get to getting back to like a more just a fun based approach, not so much about the results, but more so about like, hey, I'm playing a game.
Yeah. When I feel like you also preserve their love for the sport. Like I've actually had parents tell me they're like they were disappointed. Like I just recently had a conversation with a parent where they're like, yeah, he decided he didn't want to play, I think it was baseball, anymore. Didn't want to do baseball, decided to go and do cross country. And I have a feeling, like that's one of those things where you're not letting them really enjoy the sport so much at those younger ages. It's more of a job than it is a sport or a game, essentially.
Yeah. And it's unfortunate, but I think it's we're starting to see people talk about it more and more. I know what's his name there. He's a pitching guy. He's been big on talking about playing versus, work. And
Mhm.
I can't think of his name. Tom House. Tom
Oh,
House is big
yes.
on like showcases, just kind of being a joke, and it's not where we get better. It's and that's why the Sandlot idea, like our idea to with Mavericks was to build an organization of teams doing all the stuff we're doing now, but have teams. And then I'm like seeing the loyalty of these kids just bounce from team to team to team to play on any showcase they can get to. And that's where the Sandlot was birthed out of. Like, hey, these kids, let them go play wherever they want. But when they come on Friday nights to the Sandlot, man, it's a fun atmosphere. The music's bumping. Every kid, I mean, did you have fun? Oh, it was a blast. Like, because that's the main point is fun, fun, fun. And when the kids have fun, they tell other people and they want to do, like, it's a fun environment, and
Yeah.
that's like, why do people keep going back and telling people about a movie they enjoyed, or, hey, you got to go to this beach, like, because they had fun. And that's where those memories and experiences are found. Like, when you're having the most fun doing something you love, you'll tell anyone about it and you'll
Mhm.
keep going back to it. And it's like, that's why so many kids are leaving the game. And baseball's got this problem of trying to keep these young kids in the game. They don't, like, why? They can go do something else.
No, that's good. So when you talk about your journey as an athlete, number one, we talk a lot about just having fun and, playing all these different sports, but you also talk about faith, you talk about habits, talk about the nutrition piece. Like, what were some of the biggest things that impacted you as an athlete and got you to that D1 level eventually? And how can athletes now use those things to their advantage?
Yeah, I think, that's part of the mental game. Our habits are very, very deep in our subconscious mind, right? We don't have to wake up and think, how do I brush my teeth today? How do I walk to the school bus? Like, you get there and you're like, how did that happen? It's habitual. And when you can tap in and start to recreate habits that empower you, man, I think it's I don't remember who said the quote, maybe Aristotle or one of those guys, but it's like, your habits, habit is excellence. Your habits make excellence, or whatever the quote is. I'm
Yeah.
gonna mess it up, but you can really start to, like, build your own. Build, what type of person do I want to be? Jay-Z, you recreate yourself every day. Become who you want to be. Believe in yourself. And you see all these people that have had that success talking about, habits are key. And so for me, it was that club team that I was telling you about. The coach that ran it, his son was a first round draft pick for the San Diego Padres, and he was a phenomenal player. And yeah, I completely trusted everything that he was doing, and he started giving us 100 push-ups a night, 100 sit-ups a night, go run sprints in the street, hit 15 balls. And so we're all doing this stuff, and our team went from double A to majors in 1 year. And those habits, truthfully, like, they were so ingrained in me that when I got into high school and I saw the opportunity to, hey man, I can make varsity. Oh, I'm going to work even harder. And I was always so focused on, like, baseball. It was never a job for me
Mhm.
until, my dad was super tough. And that's part of what helped me dive into the mental game. Was I was so result based because I was afraid of what he was going to think. He'd light me up after a game. And so that's where I really struggled with confidence. Was my habits were really good. Not a lot of people outworked me, but my mental game was so low and so down that, like, dude, it didn't matter how hard I worked. I showed up and doubted everything I did. So finding, the key to unlocking your potential is, one, like, okay, where do you want to go? What's your North Star? I knew from an early age, like, D1 baseball was what I wanted to do. I played that NCAA baseball game, and, like, dude, I gave everything I had to baseball. And it was a fun game. And, I'm super grateful for all the places and people and things that I got to do. But man, it's not an easy game. And that mental piece, like, having my dad as tough as he was, I look back and I tell him to this day, I'm so thankful that you pushed me the way that you did, even though it sometimes wasn't easy, and sometimes was super hard up here. Like, I, it helped me overcome a lot of stuff. And it helped me build habits, and it helped me dive deep into the mental game and understand why I was lacking so much confidence and why I doubted myself so much. And why, dude, one day I face a guy throwing 95 and I rip a double off the wall. And next day I'm facing, 82 and I can't hit it. And it looks like a BB. And I'm like, why is it such a roller coaster ride every day versus consistency, the same performer every single day? And it was all mental. It was all deep, deep, deep in that mind. So yeah.
Any last things you want to leave specifically for the athletes?
Yeah, I mean, I would just say believe in yourself. Like if you're questioning what you're doing right now, like it's okay. It's okay to be scared or uncomfortable, or is it possible? Like that's why you set goals. It's not that you're going to hit them every time, but it's like giving you something to go after. And I think King Solomon, right? He said, "Where there is no vision, the people perish." And I totally believe that. People that don't have goals, that don't wake up with purpose, like a lot of them are just going through the motion, and they've been programmed with that 70% limited mindset, and they're just accepting everything that's happening versus like, hey, I'm going to take control of what I can control. And from there, I'm going to just let everything happen. I'm going to trust God. I'm going to trust my journey, enjoy my journey, and be present. But if I can control some stuff and I can impact myself daily in a positive way, let's go. So that's my advice, is believe in yourself. Even if you're down or up or whatever, like keep going. You can go do anything you put your mind to.
Yeah, I love that. Hunter, thanks so much for joining us today. I feel like we unpacked a lot of good stuff for the listeners.
Yeah, absolutely. Appreciate you having me on, man.
Of course. So listeners, really, again, be aware. Are you over showcasing yourself, or are you really focused on development and finding that balance? And then again, that mental game, so huge. The believing in yourself, I think that's the first step. Believe in yourself, and then take the actions that reflect that. And then again, listeners, share this with your parent friends, with your athletes, with whoever you feel like needs to hear this. And until next time, keep striving for greatness.